another day of wasting any time. I've got a lot to say, can't hold it in this time. No filter, I got no filter. No filter, I got.
Ted Kaczynski was, and yeah, it's Kaczynski, okay, not Kaczynski or whatever else people want to read it as, okay? Kaczynski, it's actually a Polish surname. Ted Kaczynski was right all along, okay? I actually reacted to
Wow.
this one alone. Fan fiction has destroyed writing, but I'm willing to go through it again because it was insane. Fan fiction has destroyed writing. So which one
I don't
would
read enough fan fiction.
Oh,
I
it
honestly
doesn't.
only
You
read
don't.
fan
You
fiction for
don't.
the.
I like. My editor is the fan fiction writer.
Uh-huh.
My Mexican American editor is a fan fiction writer. So which one should
That's
we?
awesome.
Which one should we? Which one?
Let's not do the strong female one. But I'm up for either of the other ones.
Okay, let's do with fan fiction. Has this? Have you ever seen? Do you watch anime?
I used to watch a lot of anime in middle and high school.
Have you watched My Hero Academia?
Yes.
All right, then
Well,
we
it's
can
part of
do
it. I watched the first 3 seasons.
All right, we can then do it. My Hero Academia has a very nice ending, by the way. I recently watched all of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's a nice story. I am very
Thing that
positive.
mattered.
I heard it falls off around after Overhaul.
Nah, people are just being too judgmental, I think. People are too harsh, you know? People should learn to go with
I get
the
that.
flow. That's all I could say.
I thought you didn't like going with the. You didn't agree with going with the flow.
Yeah, when it comes to, you know, discussing difficult subjects and people's rights, you know, and people potentially losing their rights. But when it comes to entertainment, maybe people should go with the flow a bit more, you know. I streaming it. Also, Switch
Okay.
Outro says, I haven't heard of the second story before. I assume these were clickbait titles, but it sounds like this is her actual. Oh no, those are not clickbait titles.
She's so insane.
Yeah. I started reading this manga, which has a premise that sounds very crappy and bad on paper, but it's strangely very wholesome. So the premise is that there's this boy who dated a girl in middle school, and the first page is that she says, "Oh, I've been cheating on you with 3 guys." You know? Because I've been cheating with you with 3 guys, and then they break up, and he is heartbroken that his girlfriend cheated on him with 3 guys, and then it's time skip to him being at, I think, first year of university. He has a new girl that he likes, and then he bumps into his ex that cheated on him in middle school with 3 guys, and she's like, "Oh, it's been so long, it's so nice," and he's like, "Wait, why is she so nice to me and so hyper when she's cheated on me with 3 guys, you know?" And then they swap bodies.
Guys.
And then they swap bodies.
Oh, I might have heard of this. There's a lot of like these vaguely transgender anime. Sorry, manga.
It's actually very strangely wholesome because it very quickly turns out, oh yeah, the girl that the boy likes is a roommate of the ex, the new girl that he likes. Oh, and it turns out very quickly that the girl just lied about cheating with 3 guys, but it's not explained why she made up the lie.
Maybe she thought she wasn't good enough for him.
Maybe everything will, but it's actually a very wholesome, and I like the way it's drawn. The characters have really big hands, but I kind of like it. All right.
Like in Yaoi.
Yeah. You ready? Ready to start?
Yes.
Tell me when to pause, okay?
Mhm.
First things first, and I really want all of you to hear me. I am
I don't know why this is.
Pause.
Yeah.
Let's check mug check.
Mug
world
check.
where all the popular
Oh God, I hate this content
She's
creator.
drinking
It's
from it.
weird. I hate this. She does these weird interjections where she just very, very
Oh yeah.
that annoys me to no end, this performative sipping of the drink.
Mm-hmm.
I rage.
Oh, she's got like a temperature controlled cup.
Oh,
She has really big cups of coffee, but she also puts ice cubes in them.
I like
But this
iced
one
coffee.
is
I love iced coffee.
yeah, but she only puts one ice cube, so
Oh.
it's like she's cooling down a big thing of coffee.
You know
But
what?
you can't do that because then it's gonna get too cold too fast.
Oh, I actually put ice cream in my coffee.
Affogato.
Yeah, any ice cream I have, I put it and make iced coffee that way.
Yeah, iced coffee is different. I love iced coffee.
Yeah, I love iced coffee too, especially in Vietnam when I went to Vietnam. Vietnam is
Did you
actually
have the
really...
coffee with the egg?
Oh yeah, when I went to Hanoi, yeah, I did. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. Vietnam is actually really big on coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But there's
coffee's awesome.
There's also an unethical coffee in Vietnam. The raccoon coffee.
Oh.
But that's a whole... Let's not get into it now.
Yeah.
All right.
First things first, and I really want all of you to hear me. I am aware that good fan fiction exists, or to be more accurate, I know that good fan fiction is possible, and I know that fan fiction in itself is a neutral thing, like all of fiction, and can be good or bad depending on...
I don't like this preamble, by the way.
No?
I don't like this preamble of, I'm aware that good fan fiction exists. I mean, I've watched this, so I don't like the fact that she goes, I want to preempt it by saying that good fan fiction is possible and that it's possible to create good fan fiction that exists, but then effectively says, but actually all of it is shit, you know?
This is smart though. I think I should anticipate criticisms that I'll receive and put them at the very beginning,
Coke.
so that the people that don't watch my video can at least see that.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm gonna performatively sip my tea. Let's read the comments. Gender bend is a big genre on the fan translation websites for manga. Yes.
I put my Coke in the freezer and now it's an ice cube, so I have to wait for it to melt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's continue. Also, hello, Maya Mayor.
writer. I know that there are probably people out there, or at least there were at some point, who wrote genuinely excellent stories set in worlds...
There you go. At some point, there might have been some fan fiction writers that wrote good stories. You know what? Do you see now why I'm not a big fan of this preamble?
Yeah, she isn't aware of any good fan fiction, and if she was, then she would have to think more critically about her statements.
Which I
think she's rage baiting.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah. I mean,
like, for example,
she succeeded with the sipping of the drink.
Fiction? Yeah. The Paradise Lost is fan fiction.
Oh yeah, and also she kind of misidentifies what is and what isn't fan fiction in this video, I think.
Yeah, I think she probably will be talking about amateur writing.
Someone else's creation. I know that it is possible to write good fan fiction. However,
However,
in recent years, despite any outlying works of alleged genius, and they are outlying and not the norm, fan fiction has developed a manifestly particular kind of image and reputation. The aesthetics of fan fiction, if you'll allow me, have become a very specific sort. And that image and those aesthetics have broken internet containment and entered mainstream literature and storytelling. When I say fan fiction in a crowded room, 90% of the people in that room immediately receive the mental image of the same general type of storytelling, which...
Sorry, we're in the limbo of...
by the way, is not a very flattering one. Regardless of what you personally might think about fan fiction, the community and the majority of known works, and crucially the influence of fan fictionism has...
I don't even know if fan fiction really has...
Fanfictionism.
Yeah, I don't even know if fan fiction, if it's true that fan fiction has all that big influence on published books.
Oh, it has a huge influence on romance and romantasy.
Maybe on those, but I can speak a bit of the Polish market. My childhood friend was a writer, and she was not really influenced by fan fiction in any way. And she wrote children's books. She won an award for a children's book when she started out, and then her ambition was to write about patchwork families, but she never was able to. She had to write teen drama for money. Yeah, that was...
Well, she could write for about patchwork families and for teens, right?
Right, but not in the way she wanted to.
Yeah.
Add on the rest of the storytelling media has a very, very specific philosophy and aesthetic. Singling out your own personal favorite works cannot change that fact. When I made my little jab at fan fiction in my video on the rise of smut in fiction, many people came crawling out of the woodwork to send me various strongly worded messages about how wrong I was because, you know, that one particular XYZ fanfic was good, actually, and because not all fan fiction is...
Oh yeah, also this person is a huge Puritan and was very weird about anything sexual.
Yeah, it's very strange. She's like sexuality is gonna take over your brain and make you addicted to BDSM.
Yeah, it's just very... She just treats anything sexual as bad in fiction, which is in writing, which is very strange. Socialix says, is this that woman who complains about AI whilst using AI to do her scripts? I actually don't know. Does she use AI for her script?
Sunday thinks she does.
Yeah, but he was also wrong about Alec Gunther.
Yeah, I think Sunday throws around that accusation a little much. I would rather just not be incorrect about it, but I don't think he is this cautious for whatever reason.
All right.
Maybe being corrected has some sort of advantage.
Maybe. Another warrior in the war on sex.
It's smutty, actually. Listen, I don't really care. I get it. Some of you like to read or write fan fiction, and some fan fiction is, to you, worth your time. But I'm talking today about the broad idea of what fan fiction generally has come...
Oh yeah, also this person, I'm sorry for pausing so much, even though like we're 2 minutes in an hour-long video, but this person has in her mind this very strange, rigid idea of books should be written like this, and that it should be about excellence, and what? You know? There are a lot of terms being thrown around. Discipline, excellence.
Yeah, I don't mind that she has a rigid standard for books.
Well,
it's just that hers is like conservative and reactionary.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's rigid in a very I don't know, how should I put it, very suffocating way, if that makes sense.
It's also contradictory. Like,
Body?
I point this out in my video. She praises postmodernist works, but what's the word? She rails against postmodernism.
Right, yeah. Jordan Peterson style.
And mean in current year. So if you like fan fiction, that's your business. But before you get all fired up and start filling the comment section with angry remarks about how it's, not all fan fiction or whatever, try to take a step back and honestly observe the overall reputation that fan fiction has to the general reading public. Another quick side note, a lot of people seem to really appreciate the list of additional information that I provided with my video about reading education. This particular topic, fan fiction, is not something a lot of people outside those communities are going to know a lot about, and I spent months doing research. So to help, I've put together a small companion document on my website that provides links to some relevant studies and data, as well as more information on fan fiction in general, and also some of the more disturbing.
Look at her finally starting to cite sources. She doesn't do this in previous videos.
Well, it's better late than never,
Yeah.
Fan fiction content, scandals, and other issues of interest to outside observers who genuinely want to educate themselves. Some time ago, I said to a friend half as a joke that through no fault of its own, Harry Potter was about 70 to 80% responsible for the degradation of modern literature. And while that observation is still valid,
I have no love for J.K. Rowling, but that's a weird statement.
Yeah, man.
I think it's far more accurate to say that the strange, unprecedented way in which Harry Potter collided with fan fiction is the real problem. In that sense, it would be more accurate to say that fan fiction is 80 to 90% responsible for the degradation of modern literature. And
that's also a statement, by the way. Very bizarre.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Statement is something I stand by. An essay I read recently, which I subsequently misplaced, observed that Harry Potter was the series that launched 1,000 ships. For those who don't know, a ship is when fans of a story will root for two characters to get into a relationship.
Oh boy.
Hence, ship. A person could be said to ship two characters, that is, hope they get together. In more modern usage, however, ship means that as far as that fan is concerned, those two characters should be together, or even are together, regardless.
Okay. There was talk about elitism. You remember the topic of elitism that we've talked about a little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm a bit elitist, but I cannot treat a person seriously when they pretend to be discussing literature and then start talking about shipping with a straight face.
Yeah.
Okay, I just cannot treat this seriously. I cannot be forced to. Okay, some people think that
This is not where you want to start if you want to be serious.
Yeah, it sounds silly to me. It just sounds like silly talk to me. Like, even if people don't like that their characters don't end up together, okay, so what?
Yeah.
It's just silly.
Regardless of what the story says. And never before in history had this been as huge of an almost global cultural reality as it was during the heyday of Harry Potter.
Yes, it has. It is just people have been doing this forever. There might have been less outlets to, to share that, but people have been probably doing it forever.
Shipping is old.
Yeah.
In truth, Harry Potter did something that was entirely unheard of in history, entirely by...
Oh, Vladimir, my super regular viewer from Ukraine says, was asleep for quite a while. Sorry, Lucy, you should have been linked this right away. Your dose of Asmon slop. Okay, we're gonna watch it after. See? My plans for stream organically materialize.
Yeah.
Copy this into my little thing. Copy. And now we can continue.
accident. Beginning with children's books, the series became an international sensation. And what was really unusual was that the length of the series allowed it to be a constant companion to an entire generation of children.
Yeah, books being a long series is also not a phenomenon that has started with Harry Potter.
Yeah, the fact that it grew up with its audience, though, is what she means. Which I think other, like, smarter people have made this point.
Yeah.
Never before in history, in quite this way, had an entire generation grown up alongside a widely beloved group of fictional children. From elementary school through high school graduation and sometimes even college, Harry Potter and co. were all there too. And due to the nature of modern society and how modern people, especially young people, engage with stories, which we'll talk more about in a minute,
Oh no.
this full absolute immersion had the most profound emotional and formative impact. Do you think YA literature is partly to blame for the decline in literature right now? Think fanfiction. Specifically, think Twilight, which was originally a work of Harry Potter fanfiction.
There you go. That's not true. No, that's not true at all. Twilight is not a
Was it Harry Potter
fanfiction.
fanfiction?
No, no,
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't.
didn't think it was.
It absolutely was
That
not.
seems wrong.
Yeah, it's completely no. It wasn't it just its original thing?
Yeah, she got the story idea from the scene where he prevents the car from crushing her, and then that's how the rest of the story came to her.
Right. But it was absolutely not a work of fanfiction.
I didn't think
Do
it
you
was.
think
Yeah.
E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey is a major offender in the rise of smut in modern society? Think fanfiction. 50 Shades of Grey was originally Twilight fanfiction, and the list goes on and on and on and on forever. So yes, in a sense, Harry Potter got the ball rolling, but there wouldn't have
No, it didn't. Okay, that's already, see? Might be so exciting.
Yeah.
I want a source on that, Senator.
even been a ball to
Does she
roll
have
had we
one? Or is she marking when she has sources on her claims? Normally, people will do they'll make a little number float on screen.
No, there was not so. There was no such thing here.
not had fan fiction. But no matter what series started it, Pandora had opened the box, the bell had been rung, etc., etc. Fan fiction was here to stay. Worse than that, fan fiction was making tangible contributions to the shape and trajectory of literature and culture. And as a result, both have suffered massively. And we're going to talk about it. At some point, this was probably the early 2010s, I, naive, foolish, innocent, ventured onto AO3, that is Archive of Our Own, the main online fanfiction hub for the last, 15 years or so, to see what there was to see. We're going to talk more soon about...
I hate this as well, okay?
I got assaulted by...
I hate those
assaulted by AO3.
what a casual traveler is likely to find when walking the highways and byways of sites like AO3. But first I want to talk about some general observations I've made about the influence of fan fiction on popular culture and the literary world.
Oh no.
And then we'll break down each one at a time. First, fan fiction is directly responsible for the epidemic of self-insert characters and self-insert mentality that has...
That's not true, by the way. Some of the most famous writers in history were self-inserts, quote unquote, because they were writing directly about their experience.
pervaded the entirety of storytelling across all mediums. Second, fan fiction is directly responsible for the smut-pocalypse that has devastated literature.
Yeah, that's just Puritanism, and I don't care for it.
Mm-hmm. I can see how it might be true, but also, I don't have a source for that.
I'm not even sure what smut-pocalypse is supposed to mean.
Like the prevalence of smut in the romance market. There used to be more of a separation between the romance and erotica genres.
Yeah. Someone gave a really
there
good
wouldn't be
comment
so
in the
much-
chat. Boon of Freyrand says, it's true, Moby Dick was written by a whale. Yeah, exactly. See? Already the chat is providing me
I like Boon of
examples.
Tyrants. Yeah. Boon of Tyrants is doing some voice acting for my book.
Oh, yeah?
potentially.
Nice.
Yeah.
Third, fan fiction is directly responsible for the meta derivative nature of storytelling that is starting to become dominant. Related to that, fan fiction is partly responsible for the overall drop in literary quality and is directly responsible for the degradation of the art of writing, including but not limited to dismal world building and one-dimensional characters, as well as the elevation of arguably non-literary approaches to certain styles, such as the disproportionate use of present tense. The first issue is most definitely the most important, and we're going to approach it more broadly than mere self-insertism. Because the real issue there, the core issue, is the immense, inherently self-indulgent nature of fan fiction as it is in current year, and has been for probably at least 2 or 3 decades. This aspect, self-indulgence, is the first thing I want to cover, mainly because it's by far the most important. It informs everything else. So what do I mean when I say
Okay.
that fan fiction is self-indulgent? First, let's look at the definition of self-indulgence. To indulge oneself or one's inclinations. And indulgence itself is defined as, among other things, over-leniency, gratifying appetites and desires, lack of restraint, giving way to temptation or inclination, yielding to gratification. I know that there are some people who would hear all this and genuinely find nothing wrong, but I think an honest person who seeks to better and master himself or
I find this very silly, this line of argumentation, to better and master themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, not everybody sets out to writing or painting, drawing, or anything else to master themselves, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Social X says, is this video not a form of indulgence? What's she chatting?
Yeah, it's
herself.
like ego for her.
Yeah.
as a person or as a writer would recognize that such tendencies are damaging and courting disaster.
I think when I watched this alone, I said, okay, what does that even mean? I hated, like, that is the thing that people on the right wing do a lot, when they just say do a bunch of, I call it sloganeering. I'm not sure if you've noticed that. Like, there's a bunch of very vague, nothing statements being thrown around and taken as fact, and then you just roll with it.
Mhm.
Like, instead of those self-indulgency, emotionally thingy, people should do the good self-mastery thingy and discipline thingy. And then they do not elaborate about what any of that means, what that actually includes, what, does that make sense?
Yeah, sloganeering is a good word. It's a buzzword.
Yeah. It's just, she's not really saying anything. She's saying a lot, but she's actually, if you think about it for a moment, she's not really saying much, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be difficult to engage with, because what do you mean by self-mastery as a person and as a writer? Poon of Tyrant says, if you read anything but engineering manuals, you are a weenie, and that's just how it is.
She doesn't read engineering manuals.
Fanfiction is probably contributing to the wealth and diversity of literature, if I had to guess.
Self-indulgence prioritizes pleasure over difficulty.
I have no idea what that's supposed. I genuinely
Oh,
don't know
boy.
what that's supposed to mean. I just. Would you like to try to get a crack at it? I have no clue what that's supposed to mean. Did pleasure over, what was this,
Courting disaster. Self-indulgence prioritizes pleasure over difficulty.
pleasure over difficulty?
Yeah, so
what is
so reading for enjoyment versus reading books that are gonna enrich you.
But it's actually also about writing. So writing that's pleasurable as opposed to difficult, What?
No, it's about reading.
Yeah?
You're reading stuff that's fun to read. You're reading like cheap slop.
Yeah,
Is what she's
but
saying.
for some people, difficult stuff is pleasurable to read. Those are not mutually exclusive concepts.
Yeah.
Self-indulgence turns restraint, self-discipline, and self-mastery into problematic trigger words that are deemed some form of elitism or ableism or some kind of big badism.
Oh, what? Like, I swear, care to elaborate?
Yeah, she's saying like people who say you should read difficult stuff are meaninglessly or needlessly like critiqued for it, which fine. I don't know.
But what does
I
self-indulgence
kind of get this.
mean in literature? Are we talking really long stories or long sentences or big vocabularies? Are we
No,
talking
she's talking about it in terms of writing as well, not just reading.
purple prose or an excess of adverbs? No, actually not at all. Those are all stylistic issues, and every writer, just like every artist, has his or her own style and will spend their lifetime perfecting and honing that style, even if some people hate it or call it inferior to other styles. Style is not what we're talking about.
Boone of Tyrant says conservatives like to act
Okay.
like they're dismissive of things they find frivolous because it's not in line with capital, even though all of them like watching Barney the dinosaur just as much as I do. There was this cartoon. I know all the old American cartoons. They're speaking of dinosaurs. Denver the Last Dinosaur. Have you heard of it?
I know The Last Dinosaur.
Denver the Last Dinosaur.
But I don't. Yeah, I don't know if it was called Denver the Last Dinosaur.
Yeah,
I
it
watched
was,
it this so long ago.
There was a cartoon series called Denver the Last Dinosaur. He rode a skateboard.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Then that's not what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it had an opening. Denver the Last Dinosaur. You know? Yeah. And there was also this cartoon called Biker Mice from Mars. It was about mice riding bikes, motorcycles on Mars.
That sounds awesome, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
About here. No, self-indulgence for a writer means that every storytelling choice made by the writer is prioritizing the writer's fantasies, pleasure, appetites, and desires over the story, the characters, or the overall quality.
See, there you go. She does do it for the writing. Pleasure over difficulty.
Yeah. No, I see that.
To be clear, I do not mean that writers shouldn't write what they like or enjoy, but rather that writers who are honestly trying to write.
In the first episode, I think the biker mice crash and land on Earth. Yeah, they do. Vladimir says, I'm not a uranium to enrich. Also, we are soon coming to fanfiction literature's trans as our kids. So we should start to burn the fanfictional books because, you know, Lucy, it's just common sense. True.
Wow.
True.
Write the best story they can, and who are prioritizing the good of the story, will very often put their fantasies and their emotional appetites and desires aside in order to make the story better.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I see what she's saying, but she doesn't have any evidence for this, right?
I kind of don't see. Like, the best stories come from an emotional place. In my experience.
She means like your whims. Like there's this thing in writing called kill your darlings.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think she's referencing that type of thing. Like they don't just make whatever story decisions feel good to them.
Right.
Indulgent writer would never do such a thing because the primary function of writing for a self-indulgent writer is.
But then again, we enter then the vague notion of in order to what makes the story good, you know?
And she is an objectivist.
Yeah. unbombed storytelling. Do you know about do you know the term unbombed?
No.
It's a little bit of like a joke that people that comment on things regarding Ukraine usually that are unbombed, that do not experience being bombed. The unbombed. There's this little.
Sounds like embalmed.
It comments on the arrogance of people that comment on Ukraine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like they lack the perspective of somebody who has experience being bombed.
Yeah. I am a bombed person since I've been in Ukraine many times when the city was bombed. I actually slept through quite a few bombings, believe it or not. Even though they were quite loud and the building was shaking.
I slept through fire alarms, so I can believe that.
Yeah. And some people feel guilty over doing that. That's another story.
Personal gratification. And this necessitates the avoidance of anything that is particularly uncomfortable to the writer. Self-indulgence means that villains can't be too disturbing, or rather the wrong kind of disturbing.
I'm not sure what that means.
That would be
She wants more
uncomfortable
villains
for the
to be
writer write.
pedophile
Or,
rapists.
to borrow the new popular adjective, it would be icky, which is where we get genocidal maniacs who are nevertheless really good at sorting out their minions' pronouns, and
Oh, there you go. See
also
that?
wouldn't get genocidal maniacs who are
You got genocidal maniacs.
nevertheless really good at sorting out their minions' pronouns.
I mean, that's not exactly
I do think that's really funny.
true, but I actually don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. Like it characterizes the character.
Yeah,
and it's interesting ethically.
Also, it makes character that I found it. I think I also noted it when I watched it alone, that I feel it's pretty funny that she opens the video by complaining about one-dimensional characters, but now she's unhappy about this.
Yeah, this is a dimensional character.
Also, that's a
Or
thing.
it's just a culture that that respects trans people, so it doesn't make the villain particularly.
I find it
ethical.
funny because that is actually what happens in My Hero Academia.
Really?
Yeah, have you seen the Overhaul act?
Because there's a trans
Arc?
woman.
Yeah, she dies, and then two antagonists go to infiltrate. Overhaul kills the trans woman, and the two antagonists go to infiltrate his base to pretend to be his minions. And Overhaul tells them, "Yeah, that guy, I didn't mean to kill him. Yeah, I didn't mean to kill him. Sorry, my bad." And they tell him, "You mean her? You mean you didn't mean to kill her? And please don't make that mistake again." Which actually I did not expect to see in anime, but it happened. But that's
a special moment.
And it's interesting because My Hero Academia did it, and actually in this video, the second story will list out My Hero Academia as one of those bad, woke, self-indulgent stories.
Really? I bet she hasn't seen it.
So
I can't imagine her watching My Hero.
yeah, but she does list it.
And also would never use a racial slur. Being a genocidal maniac will in some ways serve the emotional needs of the writer, sure.
Also, this is what I have to go on my genocide rant, because this is something, this is the moment when I see that this person has never actually studied the subject of genocide and does not understand the mindset of those who commit genocide. Because believe it or not, I actually have indulged in this topic quite a lot. The perpetrators of genocide actually see themselves as moral people, as moral agents, if that makes sense. you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because in their mind, the idea of a genocide. Okay, what is the goal of a genocide? I guess I should ask you. As a start to my little ramble.
It's to fix a demographic problem, I think.
No,
No, what is it?
it's to create a better world.
Yeah, it's like social engineering.
It's not necessarily even social engineering. It's the idea that we have certain goals. We have a pathway to arrive at a better world, at a better future, but there's a group that's actively standing in our way and they don't allow us to do it. And we have no choice. We have to get rid of that group to arrive at that better world. Does that make sense? And we don't even like it. It's a duty that we must perform. We take no pleasure in doing it. And we just have to do it. It was actually a Nazi policy, which many people don't know it, that killing Jewish people for self-indulgence was actually punishable. There were people that were prosecuted. There were Nazis that were prosecuted for killing Jewish people for self-indulgence and not for the sake of this greater goal, if that makes sense. And very bizarrely, Jewish people regained their dignity in death in that way during the Holocaust. And it's such something that is worth remembering, that genocide is often described as the bastard child of the Enlightenment.
Yeah, I have a character like this in my story. She's not alive by the time that the story begins, but she's a very kind and spiritual lady who commits genocide against a racial minority, and she thinks that she's doing the right thing. She thinks that they can be purified in death.
Right. But that is like perpetrators of genocide see themselves as moral. That is actually also a big thing that that distinguishes genocide from mass murder, for example. Because in mass murder, the murdering is usually many people that just kill, like when there was a sacking of a city, there was a sacking of a city, people would get tired of all the killing, and the killing would eventually stop. And there's also a matter of conscience. People often get disturbed with the killing. But people that commit genocide...
in the Nazi death camps.
Yeah, but actually people that commit genocide oftentimes have this goal in mind, and they actually have a much easier conscience about what they do, because they have this duty in mind, because they have this goal in mind, and they see the act as a very unpleasant thing that they have to do in order to get to that better thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was explained by a very good author, Polish war journalist that wrote a whole book on genocide, The Final Solutions, Genociders and Their Work. And that person interviewed directly the perpetrators of the Rwanda genocide and got really interesting insights from them. Like that, for example, he interviewed a person that would just go out with the machete, because that was how that genocide was done, right? And that just would slash people to death. And he said, this guy was very personable, very nice person. We drank coffee, was very personally, very pleasant person. Yeah. Then he explained him during the interview that humans are big animals and that it's actually a lot of hard work to go out and chop them up with a machete. and that he did not, he wanted to be a responsible citizen, that he did not want to leave that work to others, that he wanted to do his part, and that he was also just, that he was deceived by the propaganda of the inside of the, because there was a huge inciting mechanism. And what's interesting is that he said that he understood that what he's done was wrong, that it was that he understood, and that he met with the survivor of the family that he slaughtered. A woman survived, and he said that he apologized, and he said that is very bizarrely interesting, that he said, I know that I did wrong, I apologize to this woman, and do you know what she did? She did not forgive me, and I cannot believe she would do this to me. But yeah, it's actually, in the light of all that I've been saying right now, it's actually completely not contradictory that a person that commits genocide would be okay on pronouns and many other things, that a person can commit genocide and then go back to their family and be a loving father, husband, mother, wife, etc., right?
Right.
Yeah. Vladimir says, also, this is exactly why after Anakin Skywalker killed all those younglings, his later comments were about, I did it to bring peace and security to my empire. Yeah, exactly. He already succeeded Palpatine in his mind at that moment.
But those emotional needs would be harmed if the villain was insensitive to gender issues. Say, self-indulgence means the heroes will have long conversations with each other about popular current year political issues, despite the fact that they live in 13th century England or 38th century Saturn or some random medieval fantasy setting.
Is this supposed to be a jab at Baldur's Gate 3?
I don't know.
Also, a fantasy setting is just, all bets are off. It doesn't matter what century. It's a fantasy setting, okay?
Exactly. Like, are we not allowed to take creative liberties anymore?
That's silly. Like, if you're writing a historical thing, then you might want to do research about what kind of, conversation would have happened if you want to be super historically accurate. But it's a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
So you don't know what conversation would have happened. Because it's a fantasy, you know what I mean.
Self-indulgence demands, above all, representation, something we're going to talk about more in a minute here, but that's why you get an abundance of people of, say, African descent in stories set in Scotland in the 11th century, for example, or stories in which people who were not of period-accurate English ethnicity in most or all of ruling classes of Georgian Britain.
Yeah, again, this feels silly to me. I just cannot be forced to care about stuff like that.
She's taking, like, common reactionary, the things that they get mad about.
Yeah. I am gonna be honest, this is skin deep. Literally. Like, I don't care. Like, I care about the substance of the story, not what color the character is,
Yeah.
Like, I cannot be forced to care about these sort of things.
With no reasonable explanation.
I hate this.
Period accuracy is completely irrelevant to the self-indulgent writer who is only writing to feed his or her own personal fantasies and emotional needs. As I said, we'll get more into self-representation in a bit here. Self-indulgence is what drives writers to put themselves in their own stories, as often the main characters. Insanely, not only is this common in current year, it's also encouraged. Writers are told
This really is anti-SJW culture war slop. Yes, it is.
To write based on their emotions and their desires and needs. Writing is approached at best therapeutically and at worst narcissistically.
Oh yeah, this is where I actually This is where I actually found great issue with what she was saying. Therapeutically, right?
Therapeutically?
Yeah. I have to find it right now, okay?
Okay.
Tu jest, Busiu? There you go. There you go. I have to find this because there you go, laments. There you go. Because one of the, again, this is the thing that I was talking about.
Where are you showing me?
I'm not showing, I'm going to read it. The Laments, also the Lamentations, or Frenodis, Polish Treny, originally spelled Treny, is a series of 19 elegies written by in Polish by Jan Kochanowski and published in 1580. They are high point of Polish Renaissance literature, one of Kochanowski's signal achievements. A prominent Polish poet wrote the laments on the occasion of the 1579 death of his daughter Urszula. Little is known of Urszula. She was 2.5 years old, and the poems express Kochanowski's boundless grief and standing in sharp contrast to his previous works, which had advocated such values as Stoicism, can be seen as the poet's own critique of his earlier work. In a wider sense, they show a thinking man of the Renaissance at a moment of crisis when he is forced through suffering and the stark confrontation of his ideals with reality to reevaluate his former humanistic philosophy of life. And that is basically therapeutic, you know? One of the biggest Polish poets wrote a therapeutic piece after his daughter died. So this is just really stupid to self, that it's just bad, self-indulgent, and a modern phenomenon of fan fiction. You know?
Yeah.
This thing that was written in the 1500s, that was a basically therapy for the author because his daughter died, and a reevaluation of his earlier beliefs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of artistically.
Instead of artistically. Do you know what I mean when I take issue with the whole, oh, this writing is emotional and is bad and it should be about self-mastery and technique, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like this work would have been, I guess, dismissed by the second story.
If she stayed true to her principles, which she doesn't.
Yeah.
World where art itself is inherently subjective, the only subject matter of any importance can and must be the writer. All right.
There you go. See, this would fit the bill perfectly, wouldn't it? What I just described, what I just read.
Right. So how does fan fiction produce this specific attitude towards literature and storytelling? Well, buckle up,
Why did she say
because
it
we
like
have some
that?
bumpy ground to cover. Fan fiction, as I've said, has been around forever. There are some crazy folks out there who would go as far as to say that Dante's Divine Comedy is fan fiction. I think people who say that don't have a very good grasp on the spirit of medieval literature and approach stories with a fixed modern view, but sure. Fan fiction, so to speak, has always been around. People tell stories, and then other people tell other stories in that same world with those same characters. Absolutely. We've talked a bit about cultural decay and the prevalence of postmodern philosophy on this.
Cultural decay. Again, this is just vague nothing. This is a nothing statement.
channel already. We've also talked about how the modern way in which children are taught to read, with a strong emphasis on personal emotional interpretations of texts that are guided by their superiors, of course, alters their ability to both think and write. So
I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. Again, this
She's
is
gesturing
vague.
at indoctrination.
Yeah, but this
It
is
is very
vague to
vague because it's a
the
dog whistle.
yeah. It's vague to the point of it being worthless.
you should already understand what I mean when I say that the bulk of modern writers have a very different approach to the art and the practice of telling a story than used to be the norm.
Again, the example of one of the biggest writers in Polish history from the 1500s would completely goes against this notion. No?
Mm-hmm.
Call it self-indulgent is probably too kind, but the average young person with storytelling aspirations has, for at least a decade, been almost exclusively emotion-driven in every way. They have also been brought up saturated in the moral and cultural landscape created by social media: attention-seeking, self-absorption, narcissism, propaganda, emotional generative hot words, pop culture trends masquerading as important social themes, critical literacy, and the poisonous influence of internet politics have created anxious, fragmented, hollow creatures who nevertheless crave meaning and profundity in their stories. Combine that with the enormous emotional battering ram that they receive in college literature and creative writing classes. Combine that with the online influence of intensely aesthetically and emotionally self-indulgent online environments like Tumblr. Combine that with things like
Yes, of course. Like again, when a person pretends to do serious literary critique and then throws Tumblr at me, I just cannot, you know?
Yeah.
masculinity and femininity being under constant, confusing, endlessly shifting assault by the
And yeah, of course, all roads, as I always say, no matter what the topic, no matter what the subject matter, politics, international relations, philosophy, literature, movies, games, all roads lead to trans people eventually.
Yeah.
It all leads to trans topics eventually.
Cultural police of our modern society. Many of these would-be writers then turn to their favorite stories for escape, stories they grew up with and which are, to them, a kind of cultural and narrative safe space. Stories in our times now like Twilight, Percy Jackson, Star Wars, My Hero
Oh, did you see?
Yeah, My Hero Academia.
Academia,
It's kind of
Naruto,
doesn't fit in here. What the heck?
Sailor Moon, or, Harry Potter. Some more classically minded writers will fall in love with the
Like, I would love for her to elaborate as to what makes those things listed safe spaces of wokeness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Iliad or the Odyssey or Shakespeare, but none of these stories are exactly what these emotionally formed types of readers need in order to feel emotionally fulfilled in our constantly changing society in which emotions are the only valid currency. So they take to fan fiction to change.
It's really, yes, I find it really comical that this person claims that art being about emotion is this new phenomenon.
Yeah, it's so silly.
These stories or characters, or update them, or shift things around so the story satisfies some specific fantasy or emotional desire. This can be relatively harmless, like a fan fiction in which Hamlet gets his revenge and then lives happily ever after with Ophelia. Or it can be incredibly disturbing, like fan fiction in which Princess Leia develops a romantic and sexual attraction to Jabba the Hutt during.
There you go. This is where I have interject and have to say, wait a minute. Earlier, she complained that stories are simplistic and are afraid to be problematic, quote unquote. But now you're complaining about stories being problematic. So which is it?
Mm-hmm.
Can they be problematic, or are those silly fan fiction writers afraid to make the characters and stories problematic?
They're not problematic in the right way. She wants them to be transphobic.
Yeah, this just it's ridiculous, you know? You cannot just this is silly. Like, pick a lane, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Her captivity. And that's probably the tamest fan fiction I saw in AO3. In a normal world,
What?
such a diversion
There are totally tame fanfiction on AO3.
I know, but, you know.
would be, in some cases, harmless and short-lived, which is to say, this kind of thing, minus the disturbing perversions, is
Now it's always about perversions. It's always about all these critiques always boil down to appeal to normalcy. Always.
Mm-hmm.
normal in young teens, and
There you
then
go.
they
Normal.
grow out of it. In our society, people don't really grow out of anything. Ours is a society in which
I don't know what that means, by the way. This is
They
vague.
still
This is so
like Star Wars when they're adults.
this is so vague to the point of being just useless. Again, I don't even know if Star Wars was created with children in mind.
It wasn't, I don't think.
Like the first trilogy in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tons of old people
have
are
developed
into it.
a prolonged, almost eternal childhood.
If anything, a lot of properties started out as things for adults and then they were kind of shifted to being for children, right?
Yeah, like with the Disney purchase of Star Wars, probably.
Yeah, or like even early Hanna-Barbera properties like the Flintstones. They started more geared towards adults and then shifted towards being more child-friendly. The Flintstones used to advertise cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, you know? So I hate the vague sloganeering that is on display.
This is aided by the immense prevalence of emotions. But regardless of the reason, if emotions rule, then emotions will always be served. And if luxuriating in fan fiction in which your favorite characters don't die and get together in the end makes you happy, you'll never stop. Because why would you? The story makes you happy, and being happy is the only thing that matters, right? And it's not like you're hurting anyone. As this indulgence
This is just stupid. This is a silly non-argument. I see zero problem with this, by the way. Zero problems. There already exists the story in which those characters die, so I don't really see a problem with creating an alternative version in which they live. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
is indulged, its grip on the mind of the reader and writer becomes strong enough to overwhelm anything else. A fan fiction that meets the specific emotional needs of the reader will always be better than anything on the shelves. A fan fiction in which the right character does the right things and says the right things and has the right opinions.
Also, I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. Again, very, very vague.
It's so, like, people can have comfort reads and reads that they read for intellectual stimulation.
Of course, yeah.
But she's just ignoring it.
And has the right things happen to them will absolutely be deemed superior to, say, War and Peace, which I'm sure is probably...
Also, that's not true even. Shaded, that's like... Example, have you heard of Shadiversity?
Yes.
He wrote a book that's a total self-indulgence.
Shadow of the Conqueror.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
not
but
really...
like indulging in an edgy way.
Yeah, and it's not considered a good book. Okay? It's actually considered a very, very bad book.
Yeah. I'd like
So-
to see her do a video on his book.
That would be interesting.
I think that would be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably pretty problematic. I don't know. Have we canceled Tolstoy yet? Not that there's not,
Oh boy.
War and Peace fan fiction. I know what you're thinking. Why is it wrong to be
Wasn't
happy?
Tolstoy like a big anti-Semite or something?
Yeah.
We probably have canceled him.
Why is it wrong to pursue something that is in itself not harmful but makes you happy? How is it any different to write a sappy fanfic than it is to write a novel of some other sort? Aren't all writers self-indulgent? No, actually, they're not, and it is different.
No, and you should be ashamed for wanting to be happy.
Yes.
The difference is that an honest writer who is pursuing self-betterment and excellence
I'm sorry, but that's just bullshit. That is just meaningless words, okay? Excellence and self-betterment. Come on. I decided to be an author because I seek betterment and self-excellence. Come on. Come on, okay?
knows that sometimes the story needs things that he or she or the world doesn't necessarily like a villain who does vile things, or at least things that could potentially get him canceled on social media, like, say, a villain like Loki in the first Avengers making misogynistic remarks to a woman. I remember...
God, yeah. Also, any person that pretends to do serious literary critique that inserts constantly without pause culture wars nonsense just loses me instantly.
Mm-hmm.
This is just thinly veiled
She's
culture
always
wars.
Culture wars.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. That's her whole channel.
I remember seeing people on Tumblr
She has
really
nothing serious to say.
Yeah, it's just
Which is part of the reason that I don't think people should be making content on her.
Oh, well, too late. We're doing content now.
It's just too stupid. Yeah.
But it's just...
It is what it is.
There's not much to sink your teeth into here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's all very vague. Just... It's vague sloganeering plus culture war nonsense.
Struggling with that and refusing to believe that their beloved Loki would ever do such a thing, even as a villain. Or a hero or heroine who does something wrong and has to try to make it right, like Jane Austen's Emma. Or sometimes a story simply doesn't need the 17-page description of the main character losing her virginity, and so the writer removes it. All of these represent writers not basking in self-indulgence. Instead, choices are made not based on the fantasies and emotional desires of the writer, but on the best way to tell the best story. Please bear in mind, the best story and self-indulgence are somewhat subjective. A lot of it depends on the specific writer and the specific story. For some writers, giving into their emotional desire to have a happy ending no matter what is what constitutes self-indulgence. For other writers, giving into the emotional desire to have everything be constantly bleak and tragic no matter what is what constitutes self-indulgence. For other writers, having the entire story built...
So that's what she would say about Shadowversity.
I guess.
She would critique him. If she were principled.
Yeah.
Built around how hot the werewolf CEO is what constitutes self-indulgence. Often an unbiased, reasonable reader can recognize self-indulgence when they see it. Sometimes what it is a constant battle taking place at the writer's desk. Here's an example.
Okay, finally.
If you look at the earlier versions of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, you'll find that things like heavily emotional scenes had been cut. There's even one scene in which a glimmer of kindness from the kid was completely removed. Keeping them would have indulged McCarthy's own comfort with his characters, his desire to like them in a specific way, or even just inject his own personality or inclinations into his character's behavior. But he was certainly...
I hate that first little laughters, by the way.
Yeah.
Not self-indulgent, so they were cut because he believed that would best serve the story as he was writing it. You tell me if you think the final version was better or worse as a result. And I'm not saying that all writing has to be as emotionally and descriptively sparse as McCarthy's, or that emotions or descriptions are inherently self-indulgent, but he was specifically
Vladimir says, yeah, there is a moment in his writing when his main character is uh, thinking about to marry a very, very young woman. Didn't Shade Versity's protagonist sexually assault many, many, many children and make them pregnant?
Probably.
Wasn't that part of the story?
He was. It's like the prologue or the backstory.
Oh, because
Yeah, he was a terrible guy.
the book ends with his victims actually being part of his trial because they find out that about his past eventually, and he has a trial, and all the women that is a little thing too. All the women that he impregnated as children, I think, or something, they're like, oh, he did bad things, but at least now I have this child. So actually, it's okay what he did. Let's forgive him. And all those bitter women that do not have children, no, they hate him. Interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's very problematic.
Yeah, very messed up, I would say. I would say that problematic undersells it a bit even, you know?
pursuing a particular style in his work, and part of that pursuit was creative honesty and constant betterment. Creative honesty, by the way, does not mean bearing one's soul on the page. It means assessing honestly whether or not
Actually, sometimes it's very important to bear your soul on the page, as again in the thing that I've talked about earlier by the Polish author, right?
not something is the best it can be according to one's goals, style, and abilities. McCarthy understood the danger of the siren call of
Like, it is
self-indulgence.
important to remember that writing is not just some clean, sterile intellectual endeavor, if that makes sense, right?
It can be, but that's not what fiction is for. Like, you're creating a new world. That's a very emotional thing to do. It's like raising a child.
Yeah,
You
basically.
can't raise a child logically.
Yeah.
Indulgence, and he rejected it, and as a result, he became a better and better writer. Fan fiction, on the other hand, commodifies specifically the serving of highly personal emotions and desires, and pursuing stories with aspects which are uncomfortable or even, if you'd like, problematic, will be seen as the height of discomfort and controversy. There have been, within the fan fiction community, numerous scandals that have arisen over this simple factor. Characters who behaved in uncomfortable ways. And uncomfortable to the fan fiction reader or writer means something that prevents the reader from identifying with the character entirely, or something that prevents the reader from deriving emotional, psychological, or even sexual release from the story. These issues can range from shipping the two wrong characters to writing a male character who somehow takes away the female character's agency, or whatever. This has now made it into the literary world, as I'm sure most of you are aware. Books especially find themselves under constant scrutiny. If even a speck of these uncomfortable elements is found, the writers and publishers will be bullied incessantly until the book is pulled.
Also, that's not true. Oh, what's that noise?
Huh? Oh, the teapot?
Oh, that's actually not true. Nobody
Yeah,
complains about creating characters that do problematic things. What people complain about is authors very non-subtly endorsing certain messaging and certain behaviors, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a difference between writing a character that assaults a woman, and I'm giving extreme examples here, but there's a difference between, oh, this person assaulted this woman, and yeah, this cool dude asserted dominance over this woman, showing her the natural state of the world. right?
Uh-huh.
Does that make
Wait,
sense?
there's a difference between that and what?
There's a difference between a writer describing people doing bad things and the writer describing bad things while very non-subtly endorsing those things with his writing.
Yeah, that's kind of what Chad struggles with a bit, I think.
There's a again extreme. I'm simplifying it a lot, but again, X killed Y and X showed a super cool proficiency with dispatching with this weakling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have several examples on my website, but my favorite is Sparrow and Vine, which was attacked for having a character mention that Elon Musk was good at business. This is why also in books like Morning Glory Milking Farm, you get a page-long monologue from the Minotaur about how hard he's always working to make sure the main character never feels like she doesn't have any agency. This is fan fiction verbiage. This is fan fiction bleeding into mainstream fiction, and I think we can all agree, ruining it.
Yeah, but see where I'm having trouble with this? Like, I'm sorry, the Elon Musk to me is crappy writing, you know? Because it's gonna date the writing a lot, okay? These sort of inserts of contemporary people. Unlike you really want to make this setting.
It's fine if writing is dated, as it's just awkward if it's like 15 to maybe 30 years or I don't know, 50 years afterwards.
But it's very
But once it gets
interesting.
really old, it's fine.
It's very interesting that she sees the Elon Musking as an okay thing, not as some sort of an insert, but talking about agency as a forced insert.
Because that's not a self-insert. Because that's not Elon Musk being like, Elon Musk is good at business.
Yeah, but that's still a forced insert.
Not necessarily. It's just a reference that could be totally in character for the character to state.
Yeah, but somebody
The idea
describing
that stories
somebody, like by the same token, somebody describing taking away other person's agency could be very well in character. No?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
must present a world or a situation that perfectly aligns with the writer's specific
Pause it for a
emotional
sec.
ideal.
What she's assuming though is that like liberals don't exist.
Yes.
Performative males don't exist. That nobody actually cares about females'
Agency.
agency.
Yeah, it's something that was
Sincerely.
invented in 2024
Mm-hmm.
in fan fiction.
But there are people who would act like this.
Yeah, there are.
They're like, I know that there's power dynamics at play, so you can't consent to me, so I'm gonna work extra hard and make sure that you always. But it's like characters be characters.
Yeah.
Especially in abstract areas like agency, are the direct result of writers
I did critique this video, but I'm doing a collaboration.
coming up in fanfiction communities. These communities are populated by young college and high school age people being raised on a steady diet of internet everything, emotion-based reasoning, and political and social bullying of modern society.
Political and social bullying.
These young people have been conditioned to judge worth and value based on things like broad social literacy regarding current issues and having the correct political opinions, which, as we all know, are constantly changing.
So,
While some political opinions can be correct at a certain point in time,
yeah,
and they stay correct, or
yeah,
they become correct after things change in the real world.
change bad. I assume this person's religious.
Probably. She grew up in with her dad in like a monastery.
Ah, that explains a lot.
These young people then take these attitudes into these fan fiction communities where they do all the policing, all the moderating, all the judging and assessing. There is no oversight from literary authorities or even simple.
What oversight from what literary authorities?
I don't know, because she hates universities.
Like, what is this supposed to mean?
People who have a literary framing to their priorities. So these so-called literary fan fiction spaces are entirely built, operated, controlled, and populated by the subset of young people who then indulge together in all their fantasies and desires, sexual and non-sexual. That is, these spaces are perfectly politically and socially safe, according to their own set of ideals and values, while also being entirely permissive. These online spaces to these young people quickly become important and valid parts of their formation as
Also, book publishers have editors. Does she not take that into consideration at all?
people and, crucially, as writers. So then reading and also seeing the rising popularity in these spaces of the types of stories that will necessarily succeed there teaches young writers that good writing means that the story and characters must embody their fantastical ideals for social perfection and can't be too uncomfortable. This discomfort
That is very bizarre. This very strange notion that moral perfection is when you're not a total racist, I guess. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, moral perfection, in this context.
Yeah, she has a very narrow view of. I mean, clearly she has a problem with liberal morality or whatever.
Yeah. It's also
But
find
the
it,
issue is that nobody's demanding things.
yeah, I'm
outside of
finding it
that.
interesting that she keeps talking of moral perfection that's being imposed while non-stop crying about degeneracy. I find that
True.
very ironic, you know?
Yeah.
Comfort, after all, prevents the story from satisfying emotional fantasies to their utmost. So these discomforts are not only undesirable, they are morally and creatively unjustifiable. That's why in our era, stories in which a fictional character is racist are maligned and canceled because even
That's not true at all. That's bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's not.
That's complete nonsense. My Hero Academia has racism. The story that she listed, a lot of it actually. What now?
the presence of such a thing prevents complete immersion in an emotional and psychological fantasy land. That is, it prevents self-indulgence. And these writers are being trained to genuinely believe that getting in the way of total emotional pleasure is bad writing. Examples like Sparrow and Vine, which was pulled before release after readers online expressed outrage over things said by the characters, are a perfect example of fan fiction writing mentality taking
It
over.
depends on the delivery, doesn't it? If I don't know what
Yeah.
the context is, what the character said, if there wasn't any narration behind it, then I just cannot say.
Over mainstream culture. The author even said when she pulled the release that she would rewrite passages so they wouldn't contribute to harm. That's the kind of thing fan fiction communities train writers and readers to.
Yeah, again, we don't even have the context for what is being talked about here. Do you know what is being talked about here?
Sorry, play it again?
priority. Hold the release mentality taking over mainstream culture. The author even said when she pulled the release that she would rewrite passages so they wouldn't contribute to harm. That's the kind of thing fan fiction communities train writers and readers to prioritize. But having a, as the writer described, flawed character in this book who expressed admiration for Elon Musk's business
But we don't have enough context to be able to even comment on this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you know. But
Yeah, she's not explaining the situation.
yeah.
strategies was way too uncomfortable for readers, so it had to go. Any writer who gives into this kind of bullying is a coward and lacks all creative
We
integrity.
don't
But
even know what the bullying was. We don't know what the context of anything was. It's just person just asserts things without anything, you know?
that's what fan fiction does to you. I feel like I need to tap a sign or something. Of course, some select kinds of discomfort can be present, but only if they are tagged with content warnings. This can be anything from vomiting to the presence of food to eye horror to other things I can't mention in a YouTube video. As long as they're in the content warnings, you can usually get away with including uncomfortable elements, but you have to adhere to the content warning system. If you don't, you run the risk of potentially disrupting.
I'm sorry, but again, trying to do a supposedly serious literary critique while without any, just with a straight face saying part of bad writing is including warning about contents of what you're writing about.
Mm-hmm.
This is stupid. I just cannot.
Mad at like teenagers on the internet.
I just cannot treat this seriously. Okay, I somehow I don't find it bad that, let's say there's a person that was sexually assaulted, right? It would be useful actually for that person to see in a piece of work, hey, this work contains sexual assault. Oh, okay, I guess I will just avoid this piece of work then.
Yeah, it's just like good practice for your audiences. It doesn't cost you that much, and it can really help somebody's mental health.
Yeah, just crying about
Or
stuff
avoid
like that.
triggering them.
I just cannot treat this seriously. Crying about something like that. It's more culture war nonsense. It has nothing to do with quality or writing, being a writer or anything, or fan fiction for that matter.
A reader's sense of comfortable emotional immersion in their fantasy land. And there are few sins higher in the fan fiction community. Why do you think people started demanding trigger warnings on everything?
What's wrong with trigger warnings? Like this is the problem that I have with right-wing commentary. This is bad. Why is it bad? Because I say so. Pointing to the sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bad. I assert that it's bad, and there it is. Don't you see what it's on the sign? Like, she hasn't asserted, she hasn't really established why such content warnings are bad. Not at all.
Now, of course, emotional and psychological fantasy lands are subjective. So one writer's sexual assault fantasy will be just that, fantasy land. And for another writer, it will be a story in which Lady Macbeth and Ophelia run away to open a coffee shop in Finland and talk about how powerful and independent they are while they're in bed or whatever. What I'm saying is that everyone goes looking for different emotional needs to satisfy, and like other kinds of tastes, these tend to be highly specific. That's why the tag system on sites like AO3 is so robust. And that's where that...
Oh no, people can find exactly what they're looking for in a piece of literally... What?
Began for literature. Tags and hyperspecificity like that only occurs when the readers are seeking hyperspecific content to satisfy hyperspecific emotional or sexual needs, and have become accustomed to having those needs.
Yeah, Do you know what this person is doing right now, unironically? And I said that when I critique this alone. You know what this person just is doing, in my opinion, right now?
Besides sloganing, or what was the word?
She's sloganeering.
Oh,
But
somebody
she's
just joined.
basically.
We're still in here.
Oh,
Yeah, we're
well,
streaming with Lucy.
yeah, we're doing a collaboration.
Like you're on stream right now. You're live.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was your
Right.
drunken noodles?
They were fantastic. You know you're in like the live stream stage for my channel, right?
It's okay.
Yep.
I don't care.
We can treat it
Okay.
like
Alright.
Oh, you're leaving. But you could do
Yeah. I'm going to sleep.
Oh, I thought you wanted
You're going to
to
sleep?
watch the second story with us.
Oh, I would love to, but I'm literally passing out. I got no sleep last night.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Aw.
trying to reset myself so I'm functional. But you two have fun.
Ah, thanks.
Do you want me to sing you a lullaby?
I do, but I really shouldn't right now. Have a good night.
Good night.
Damn. So you know what this person's doing right now? Unironically, in my opinion,
What's she doing?
she's actually
Yeah.
criticizing the premise of genres existing in literature.
Just because she wants you to not know what the book will
Because
have.
you're looking
ahead
for
of time.
something very specific that caters to specific
Yeah.
needs. That's the
Uh-huh.
premise of books having genres.
Emotional or sexual needs, so erotica can't exist.
Yeah, that's that's the whole purpose of genres existing, for you to be able to go get a story that targets your specific needs. So books should not have genres then? Right?
She's just making no sense, I think.
Yeah. Because tags are just a more specialized version of having genres. Nothing more.
Mm-hmm. Maybe she would critique the presence of genre, though.
Which is silly. Come on.
Yeah.
Neatly labeled and accessible because that's
Yeah,
the
neatly labeled and accessible. Right? Like genres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whole point of fan fiction. Because here's the thing. Yes, there's smut, and that satisfies sexual fantasies and sexual needs. But self-indulgence extends beyond smut, resulting in work that is essentially emotional smut. Its sole function is to allow maximum emotional satisfaction. If you look at the cloud tag on AO3, you can see some of what I'm talking about here. And these are only the most popular tags, so only a fraction of what's available. Let's ignore for now the plethora of disturbing sexual tags. By the way,
There you go. Always with the
Disturbing sexual
which
tags,
is very like
smut.
complaining about moral purity while complaining that people from fan fiction writers will demand moral purity while complaining about degeneracy and moral impurity. Come on.
Yeah. Also, there are only two that she had to censor.
way, what I've blurred here is stuff that I think I might not be allowed to show in a YouTube video.
Okay,
Feel
great.
free to go to the site yourself if you want to see the whole image. But let's look mainly at these other tags that signify a work that satisfies a specific emotional need
Cuddling and snuggling, praising, protectiveness.
or hunger.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, God
She
forbid.
didn't circle gender themes
Ah,
or LGBTQ themes
you missed it. Friendship.
or
God
making
for-
out.
God forbid somebody wants to just read a book about snuggling. God, degenerate nonsense. God damn.
We can see hugs, happy ending, comfort, cuddling and snuggling, feelings, praise, kink, protectiveness, self-esteem, and so on. And we can also see tags that are meant to satisfy the readers and writers' emotional need to see themselves represented, such as autism spectrum, LGBTQ, reader insert, gender themes, and so on. What
Yeah, but again, this is just an assertion that somehow that's wrong when there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, actually.
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize is that the need for emotional satisfaction, especially among young women, is almost as strong, if not stronger, than the need for sexual satisfaction, and can bring about a bizarrely specific array of subgenres and tastes, comparable
Why bizarre? Why?
Comparable to porn addiction.
to, sexual entertainment things.
Okay, well, I'm just okay. So what? That's my gut reaction. So what?
Give you an example. Show of
Okay.
hands, how many people know what I'm talking about when I say the word wump?
I don't know.
Don't worry, I'm
Wump?
going to tell you.
Wump.
Wump, an old onomatopoeia for something like a solid body slam in comics, is the term that has come to refer to emotionally or sexually satisfying physical harm to characters. That is, scenes and stories in which a character is hurt in some way will produce emotional satisfaction in the audience. Don't get me wrong,
Okay.
this isn't always satisfaction that the character got hurt like some kind of sadism. It can be, but not as a rule. This is more the emotional release of the physical harm and, crucially, the comfort that comes after. The emotional satisfaction comes more from the comfort than the hurt itself, so the hurt is satisfying because it presents the promise of future comfort, if that
Okay.
makes sense. This emotional need, once identified, became an object of indulgence. This fan-made, publicly available, highly detailed
Okay, I still don't see, like, again,
The point?
yeah, I still don't see the point, and I still don't see the negative, actually.
Mm-hmm.
spreadsheet focusing primarily on Western media provides timestamps and descriptions for wump scenes in movies and shows, and has over 15,000 entries, including TV episodes, movies, games, podcasts, comics and manga, anime, YouTube videos and music videos, and so on. And of course, trigger warnings. On Tumblr, you
Okay.
can find hundreds of users who make wump lists for movies and shows and books, as well as GIF sets, or GIF sets if you'd rather, of these specific scenes with emphasis on whatever aspect the maker finds most satisfying, whether that's the pained expression of the hurt character, the sight of a chiseled body covered in blood, or the worried faces of the character's friends. Moreover, there's physical wump and emotional wump, and this can be even further broken down. Gunshots your thing? We've got wump for that. You prefer a nice head cold? We've got that too. How about torture, grief, crying, chains, handcuffs, stabbings, non-consensual stuff? Why do you want it? Which, by the way, is all
Wow,
with
she doesn't know
male
that
victims.
that
Needless to
rape
say,
kinks
there's a
are
large
one of the most common vanilla interests, vanilla fantasies in women.
subgenre of fanfiction focused on wump. This is often called merely hurt comfort. You can also see it in these other tags, such as angst, that would be emotional wump, anxiety, self-harm, trauma, torture, medical injury, crying, comfort, and so on. What does this indulge exactly? It depends on the reader or writer.
Also, I don't think it's a hot take. Sometimes it's okay to indulge. Straight up. It's fine to indulge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything wrong with indulging. If you have an emotional need, why not fulfill it? It's fine, you know?
Yeah, but you might get addicted
Ah, yeah, of course.
to pleasure.
For some, it is absolutely sexual, and so the
Where's
story
the
will even veer into
self-excellence?
smut territory. For many, though, it's entirely emotional and fulfills some attention fantasy or caregiving fantasy, or what have you, of the writer or reader. Some will say that it's therapeutic, which is probably often true, but that's therapy, not literature. And a good therapist would probably caution against a constant, ever-increasing indulgence in works that could potentially re-traumatize the reader or writer. Of course, and this is a closely related
Why does she
issue, this
insist that it
notion
would
that a
be
writer's
ever
therapy
increasing?
session, even if it is beneficial to the writer, ought to then also be published for everyone else to read is both a very non-literary notion and is a
I don't know what literary and non-literary notions are, by the way.
Yeah, me neither.
direct result of fan fiction's nefarious, poisonous influence on the minds of writers, and is, in a sense, the absolute height of self-indulgence. Interestingly, very few of these fictions and infatuations feature female characters getting hurt. Feel free to discuss that one amongst yourselves. The bottom line here is that fan fiction has, for some time, been specifically and prominently a vehicle for the indulgence of highly specific emotional or sexual needs and fantasies. As these fan fiction writers grew up while failing to mature and broke into the mainstream, of course this attitude came with them. The thing with self-indulgence is that self-betterment as an author or writer of any kind is no longer what is important, but
Also, I could just throw the same critique that she's been having at her very easily, you know? That
Which
instead
critique?
of she's talking about self-indulgence, emotional and sexual, but writing a story for the sake of self-betterment is also an indulgence. Because
Not if it hurts.
yeah, okay. I see.
rather self-representation. The story has to, in every way, represent the specific ideals, desires, fantasies, politics, opinions, and aesthetics that the author values most. More than this, the story and characters have to represent the author the most. In a word, the story has to represent the author's identity. I've had people send me messages telling me that fan fiction is incredibly important because it allows representation and for them to identify with the characters. Fran Lebowitz is someone with whom I seldom agree. However, a lot of her opinions on books and readers and writers do have a strong note of truth to them, but never more so than when she said this: a book is not supposed to be a mirror, it's supposed to be a door.
I like that.
I don't.
I mean, of course you can analyze yourself, but or like get insight into yourself through books, but it should be a practice in empathy to empathize with the characters
That's true.
rather than to navel gaze.
But it can be navel gazing. Like, I
It
don't
can
see
be,
a
yeah.
problem with that. What if your fiction book is about your experience of surviving Auschwitz?
Mm-hmm. I
Right?
mean, no, not from the author's perspective, like from the readers. Yeah, it's okay to if the author is navel gazing.
Oh,
That, but I think she's talking about readers here.
but it's also true for the
Or-
readers, isn't it? If I went through a horrible experience, or if I'm like, that's especially true. Like, that's the LGBT was given as an example, right? If someone's trans and feels all the time the attack after attack after attack on trans people, then sometimes it's okay to have a story wherein they can just, find themselves in the character from the story, no?
But at the same time, because the world is different, they still have to it's still a practice in empathy to reimagine yourself in that character
Yeah.
who doesn't have any of the suffering that you do.
That's true. Yeah.
She's absolutely right. The function of reading is not to find yourself perfectly represented in the characters and their environments. The function of reading is to explore other people, other ideas, other environments, other
I think it can be both. It can be exploring others, but it can be also finding representation of people with similar plights to mine.
But I think in general, you read books to learn about others. It's not to say that that books that don't allow you to explore yourself sorry, or yeah, books that don't allow you to explore yourself are better, or that books, but it's so subjective. Like like a book that allows you to explore yourself is going to be different for everybody. It depends on how much they relate to the author and stuff.
Circumstances. You have full and constant access to your own mind. A book or any story is supposed to broaden your mind. How can it do that if it's just you replicated over again? If you want to see yourself...
But such a scenario is actually impossible. Right? Unless I write my book and about myself and I just read my own book. Like no author will be able to replicate me perfectly.
Yeah.
So that scenario.
Some people project really hard, though.
It's true, but it's still,
look in a mirror.
Sort of
that is
besides
not
the point. You think it's sort of besides the point?
Yeah, exactly. That it's not the fault of the author, is it?
Yeah, it's not the fault of the author.
The function of a story. Self-indulgent, self-representing fan fiction isn't literature. It isn't even in itself valuable storytelling. All it is the mirror of the author and therefore only has value to the author. And that value itself is fleeting and limited because all the author has done with it is presented in some limited form the contents not of his or her own mind, but of his or her limited specific emotional or sexual fantasy land. We see this now in mainstream media with the epidemic of self-insert characters, whether it's video game makers creating or changing characters to look just like them, or Rebecca Yarros writing a Mary Sue heroine who has the same medical condition she has, or a lesbian author making all of her sapphic heroines the most powerful, brilliant, wisest characters in the story. Of course, you're more than welcome to, as they say, write what you know, but this isn't that. People who indulge in this self-identity in their fiction are doing so partly out of that self-indulgence and that overall inflated sense of self-importance, but it also has to do with the entire attitude towards identity in fanfiction. Not only are writers expected to put self-insert characters in one form or another into their stories, they are also just as often altering existing characters to more closely resemble themselves. As in, for example, lesbian writers who make fanfiction in which the canon straight female characters are in a lesbian relationship, such as Arwen and Eowyn.
Oh no.
Of course, if the writer isn't a lesbian, this might not be as well received by the readers. This goes further, too, with really hot-button social issues being inserted into fan fictions, such as HIV. Writing such a story while not actually being HIV positive yourself is something of a fan fiction faux pas. A strange phenomenon of fan fiction is the unwritten, soft rule that you can't write what you aren't. This extends to disabilities, diseases, and various specific sexual orientations and gender identities and so forth. If that isn't you, then writing it dominantly in your story isn't always entirely permissible, which is why people who aren't, say, Black or Hispanic will get in trouble nowadays for writing books with characters who are. Just another example of fan fiction helping to change the rules. How? Because fan fiction, given its...
I do think that it is problematic if you're like suspicious or you're avoiding writing characters that are not like you. If you're not like, as she says, Black or Hispanic. Because being an author is also how you learn about these groups. It's an important part of the process, like the research that you need to do to create a story. There's this stereotype that you should write what you know, but something like underrated and implied in that is that you need to expand what you know in order to write what you don't know. Right. That you should write what you don't know. You just have to educate yourself.
Right, yeah. I agree.
Insane popularity and its ever-growing readership forms readers. These readers then go forth in droves on Twitter and Goodreads and make demands and demonstrate outrage and whatever else. Publishers, producers, and writers listen and then bend the knee. And every single time a writer apologizes or changes a book, the fan fiction-fed mob grows stronger, and the legitimacy of this fan fiction way of thinking about literature and storytelling grows exponentially. Why do they do it? Well, I'm sure the troll types in their parents' basements just get off on the power. But some of them, a lot of them, absolutely insist that literature and stories look like them. Now, placing oneself squarely and centrally in the text is a natural, normal thing for someone who grew up reading stories in which other authors were placing themselves in the text, and who grew up reading by inserting themselves into fan fiction stories, plain, blank slate main characters who were written specifically so that the reader could use that character as an avatar of sorts. If the emotional mind of the reader has been programmed to insert itself into the head of the main characters, then such a reader will obviously write their own characters also as self-inserts. For instance, did you know that there is an entire subgenre of fanfiction?
Let's probably do a little bit more of that, and then I'll sleep for an hour, and then I'll have to walk Fido.
Okay. How much is there left in this section?
Just a bit. It's almost the next section.
Okay. Yeah, let's finish this section and then we can stop.
All right.
Or even altering existing characters to become them. That's how fanfiction has trained them and the rest of society now to think it is supposed to be. So yes, of course they're shamelessly making video game characters who look just like them. Of course they're making their main characters have the exact same illnesses or disabilities or personality as they do. All of this is the most natural thing in the world to a fan fiction reader and writer. Let's take a moment now to talk about the one thing about fan fiction that everyone, especially those not in the community, most associate with fan fiction. Smut.
Okay, that's the new. That's the next thing. So I guess that's it for tonight.
Oops.
Thank you for this amazing. What do you call it? Collab. That was great.